And I think I just enjoyed that process. I enjoyed that getting better. It was the thing I did. It was part of what I did socially, right? It was those were my buddies. So we just went ahead and worked out and did those things. So I think that's a piece of it. And, again, getting back to our current crop of kids, I think sometimes that type of environment is too much structured. It's the parents are signing kids up for lessons versus the kids driving that development. And when we get kids around here that are asking me to open the cages for them, I think those are the kinds of kids that tend to keep getting better and have success. The ones that are self-motivated to work, that don't need somebody to tell them what to do. I think that's what the best are doing, right? When you look at the highest levels, they not have to be told what to do. They want to do it. It's fun. They like the preparation.
Welcome to the Flow State Yoga for Athletes podcast. I'm your host, Dan Rosenak, lifelong student athlete, here to share with you interesting discussions featuring athletes and coaches exploring health and human performance, yoga, and flow state awareness. I hope this show helps us all access our highest potential. Thank you and enjoy the journey. Okay. I'm excited to welcome today to the show Coach Kyle Werman of LaSalle College High School in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Kyle's the head baseball coach at LaSalle. Prior to that, he coached at the collegiate level at St. Joe's and several other schools. So we'll get into his coaching background. Kyle and I met at our local community pool with our kids. I think we had a good connection chatting about sports and coaching, and I'm excited to share with everyone more about Kyle's background. So welcome to the show, Kyle.
Thanks for having me. Excited to do it.
Awesome. So let's start with your baseball journey growing up. What was your athletic experience like, and what drew you into baseball?
I grew up in Southern California initially, so that's kind of where I started my journey in the LA area. And like most kids, I got put into T-ball and spent a year there. And I think there was a summer camp, South Bay baseball camp was just an area camp. My dad just signed me up and sent me there when I was, I think, 7. And so it was my first experience actually, in a camp setting. And I had a really good connection with one of the coaches. I think it was Danny Palminato. I think that was the last. He happened to be the nephew of Sparky Anderson, who was the Hall of Fame manager in American National League. But that was a side note. But either way, like I connected as a 7-year-old in a camp setting and kind of got the bug for baseball. And came home excited. And my dad was always there to cultivate. We played catch in the backyard. His experience in baseball ended at 12 years old when they got to the big field, and most kids retire at that point. And that was his experience. And he didn't have a supportive dad that played sports with him. His background was actually, he bowled professionally. So he got into bowling and worked his way out, was on the PBA tour in the late 70s, did that for a little while until he had kids and wasn't really a moneymaker. So he had kind of a sports background in that way, but not a baseball background. And, so when I kind of caught the bug, we kind of started learning the game together. So I'd go to that camp every year. We found other camps in that area. Harvard Community College had a great camp that we'd go to all the time. And so I just kind of learned the game going to camps, and then we played. My dad became my coach. We kind of learned the game together, and they kind of evolved from there and never stopped going.
And ultimately, you played collegiate ball at UVA. What do you think were I want to hear about that experience, and what were some of your key skill sets that were your baseball strengths that you developed early?
Yeah, well, I was the smallest kid on the field on every team I've ever played on at every level. And I was the smallest kid in my high school, boy or girl, when I was a junior in high school. So I was a really late bloomer, really low on the spectrum as far as size. I was driving, I was 4'8", 85 pounds, and that was my learner's permit at 15 and a half. So I was really behind the 8 ball. But one thing I can always do on the baseball field, what's amazing about our sport is you look at like a Jose Altuve, and certainly he's got a pretty unique skill set. He can do everything, and you have to at that level. But I could really defend. Like I took a lot of pride in being able to play defense. I could play anywhere on the field. for my size, I still could throw long enough to hold my own at the higher levels. I could make consistent contact. I was never a power guy, but I could just do all the little things that you needed to do. I could pitch, I could play second short, I learned how to catch. And that kind of opened the door for me, and eventually I grew. But when I showed up at college at University of Virginia, the only reason I played there, I could get into school on my own. I was from Virginia at that point. I was 12 and spent around 12-year-old year in Northern Virginia. But academics were always important to me. I valued them. We financially, with one of 4 kids, looking out of state at colleges wasn't really practical. So targeted the top 3 schools in my mind for that state, which were UVA, Virginia Tech, and William & Mary. Went to their camps. I actually didn't go to Virginia Tech's camp. Went to their campus, saw them practice, just kind of drove through. They were pretty good at that time. Went and saw Virginia practice. Went to their winter camp, went to William & Mary's camp in the winter. And kind of found at that time where the programs were in 99, that Virginia Tech was the best of the 3. And then William & Mary, Virginia were similar. And the coaches at William & Mary, Jim Farr at the time, at the camp, had a good camp. And I asked him, hey, what are my chances here? I'm going to get into school. In fact, I got some academic money to go to William & Mary. He's like, well, I want a second baseman that can hit home runs. And I'm like, okay, all right, well, I'm not going here. At UVA, Steve Keon was one of the assistant coaches. He was 5'7", some little guy. Went to their camp, and I'm like, all right, well, if I'm going to take a chance, I'll go here. I kind of watching them practice. I think, as funny as a coach now, I see kids going through the same process, and I think we self-assess pretty well. And get on the field, you can see other players around you, and you can say, okay, I fit in here, I fit in there, and when I watch Virginia practice, certainly I'm probably looking at their worst players and saying, I'm better than that guy. And that's what a lot of our kids do too. But I remember watching and say, you know what? Obviously, I'm not physically where I need to be, but I think I can play against these caliber guys. And so I got into school there. I went to their camp, and they had this camp called the Best of Virginia Camp, which was a big camp. I think they still run it. And it was in August. I'd already gone through the orientation. So I was going. And I had a good week at camp, and Coach Womack, who was the head coach at the time, said, well, hey, you come join us from the first day. So my walk-on experience at Virginia was really kind of as a preferred walk-on, where I didn't have to go through a particular tryout, but I showed up day one at the first meeting, stepped on the scale to 117 pounds. Certainly wasn't where I needed to be, but my foot was in the door, and as I mentioned, like the versatility, my ability to catch, open that door. Like, at worst case, I could be a bullpen catcher for them. And so it cost them very little to take a chance. I found out later that my assistant coach in high school, Justin Counts, who's still a coach at my high school and the football coach at Madison High School in Virginia, he played for Dennis Womack in 98 and he won or 96, I think, and won the ACC tournament. And he had put in a call before I went to that camp. Hey, we keep out this working kid. He's, he can do some things and not ready yet. So that kind of was the help I needed, which a lot of our kids need that help in the process. And, I didn't find out that till later that happened, but that was my foot in the door, and so I got an opportunity in the fall. That spring, there was zero chance I was going to play. And in fact, in the hitting rotations, you have about 20 hitters on a team. They didn't even put me in a hitting rotation my first year. So I'd just go out to second base, take a ton of ground balls, and then go to the bullpen, catch my bullpens. And that was my routine all spring as a freshman in college. I loved it because I knew that defense was my thing. And I had Dennis Womack, the head coach, hit me ground balls every day for 2 rounds, and we'd compete. I just had a blast doing that, kind of buying my time. And in fact, I told Coach Womack, hey, don't play me because I'm redshirting. I kind of redshirted myself. He was like, all right, whatever, we're not playing you anyways. There's a funny story. We had an injury to one of our catchers, and it was like maybe 2/3 of the way through that first season. And one of our catchers got hurt. The other catcher was the DH, or was also not available. So we're down to our third catcher, and that was now me. And he's like, Werman, hit your gear. I'm like, but my red shirt, coach. So then suiting up this other senior to finish the game. So, yeah, that was my freshman year. It really wasn't. In sophomore year in the fall, it was kind of the same thing. Started the ball, we were running air squads. So they split 2 rosters, and I wasn't on either roster. So that tells you where I stood in my sophomore year. And I'm telling my dad about this. He's like, well, hey, if you want to do anything in life, you got to advocate for yourself. Go have a conversation, talk to your coaches. So you had control right into the office. Hey, I'd love to meet. And um, sat down with the coaches and like, well, we know you're doing engineering and, that's a lot of time. We don't think you're physical enough. And I just remember having this conversation. So clearly I had an idea where they're kind of expecting you to come in and quit at that point. And instead, I'm like, well, that shortstop that freshman that you brought in, it was Mark Reynolds, who played 15 plus years in the big leagues. He was the freshman that was the year behind me. He's like, well, he's played. I'm like, I can play better shortstop than he can.
Nice.
Yeah. And they're like, oh, really? All right. And to their credit, they put me at shortstop the next day. And I played the rest of the fall at shortstop at 125 pounds. I think I was 135 by that point, and held my own. And lo and behold, I was the opening day starter at second base, and ended up starting for 4 years there, and eventually got to 155 pounds. But yeah, that was kind of my story, classic kind of underdog story. But yeah, it's kind of wild.
And that is an awesome story. And to self-advocate in that way, to speak up and say, look, this is what I can do. Give me a chance here.
Yeah. I talked to our guys here at LaSalle. I think that there's something about having confidence, but not arrogance, right? Having belief in what you can do and trusting that. And I think that leads to how you can perform, right? When you're prepared, when you can accurately self-assess where you stood. Like, I believed it, and I knew I wasn't going to hit like Mark Reynolds, but I absolutely felt that I could defend better than anybody on that field. Now, the coaches might not have known or believed that yet, right? To their credit, they put me out there and say, go ahead and fail, right? And because of my belief and preparation, I didn't fail. And in fact, I took an opportunity to show what I could do, So I think it's important for kids to learn how to bet on themselves. They also have to be able to assess and look in the mirror and be realistic about what their opportunities are. And there's risk to that, right? It could have not worked out, and I was okay with that, So I think that's certainly an element of, not only sports, but just life in general, right? You're going to go for a job interview. You're going to want to have, the perfect job. You got to know, am I the right candidate for this job? Can I do that job? And when you can, you should confidently convey the skills you have.
What were you doing when no one was watching in those 4 years at UVA to prepare yourself to be in that position and ultimately to make it into the pros and play for several organizations beyond your time at UVA?
I mean, number one, I was doing well academically. That was always in the back of my mind that, look, at the end of the day, I'm here for education. I never took it. Baseball was never, ahead of what I was trying to do academically. Certainly it put strain on your preparation and the time you have. But I really enjoyed the process of taking swings in the cage and getting better, taking ground balls, like going and showing up early for practice, for really work on my own, had a couple teammates, and we just go ahead in the cages on our own. Like, it was just what you did. It was something I enjoyed doing. I didn't do it because I thought it was going to be some payout. I knew that part of being great at anything, you need to really work at it. And I think I just enjoyed that process. I enjoyed that getting better. It was the thing I did. It was part of what I did socially, right? Those were my buddies. So we just went ahead and worked out and did those things. So I think that's a piece of it. And, again, getting back to our current crop of kids, I think sometimes that type of environment is too much structured. It's the parents are signing kids up for lessons versus the kids driving that development, and when we get kids around here that are asking me to open the cages for them, I think those are the kinds of kids that tend to keep getting better and have success. The ones that are self-motivated to work, that don't need somebody to tell them what to do. I think that's what the best are doing, right? When you look at the highest levels, they not have to be told what to do. They want to do it. It's fun. They like the preparation. And I think that's a big piece of it.
Was there a special, and this could be overarching, was there some special meaning for the game in your life?
I think for me personally, baseball was always the way that I could fit in. Like, it was my thing. I reference, like, I was such a late bloomer. Like, socially, the girls weren't interested in me, right? And when you're at school, like, if the girls were interested in you, you're a cool kid, and you fit in.
Right.
I was a kid that should have been stuffed in the locker. I was a straight A student, small little dewey, wore glasses, right? For every reason, I should have been the nerd that is not socially adept. But when I stepped on the baseball field, I belonged. And so that always gave me a sense of belonging, a sense of confidence. My personality is different when I'm on the field. If I'm in a social environment walking in, I'm pretty reserved. I don't really engage. I'm not like the social butterfly. I'll come out of my shell at times, but when you put me on a baseball field in any capacity, I'm the alpha now, is how I feel, right? I'm driving the conversation. If I'm in a camp and I'm an instructor, I'm taking charge and running that infield station, right? That's my world, and I think that's what kind of baseball gave me is the confidence. And you develop that because I just felt like I put in a lot of time and I have a lot of expertise and I felt confident in that. And now as a coach and a teacher, like I want to convey that. I want to give kids that same power. Baseball is such a great avenue for that because it gave me a chance. I would never do that in football or basketball. Just the physicality is such a big piece in those sports that I didn't have. But in baseball, I could do that. I could be an elite defender and still have a spot, even though I wasn't even offensively ever hitting a three.
It is. Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Tell us about what it was like moving to the next level beyond collegiate ball. What was that experience like? And how do you find your space in the pro organizations?
Yeah, some of it's luck, right? I certainly had aspirations to play professionally, and I believed I could do it, and at the time on my back end, Virginia had kind of transformed now from a bottom dweller in the conference to now a top 25, even top 10 program over a 3 or 4 year window. The current coach, Coach O'Connor, is now in the Hall of Fame, Coaches Association Hall of Fame. He's rolled in last year. The assistant coach is still there. Was just announced the assistant coach of the year last year again. They've been in Omaha 3 out of the 4 years. So like the program had just transitioned. So I was down on the field with, Mark Reynolds was our shortstop. Ryan Zimmerman was our third baseman. Both guys that have big league careers. Our first baseman, Joe Kaczynski, played in the big leagues with the Rockies and was an ACC Player of the Year. So there was our infield, and there was me. So I belonged with those guys. And so my senior year, I'm like, I want to get drafted. I was realistic about the reality of that happening, but I was hopeful that could happen. And my name didn't get called, and that's okay. And so I was lined up to go work as an engineer at Raytheon in Northern Virginia. And I was playing in like a men's league in the summer. But because I was on the field with a guy like Ryan Zimmerman, there were scouts in every game. So every area scout had watched us. And it turns out in August, the area scout for the Mets, Matt Wondolowski, was, they had an injury and they just needed a roster plug to get them through the rest of the season down in rookie ball in Kingsport. And he, I guess, knew that, hey, I could plug. So I got a random phone call from one of the guys, with Gene Kearns. And I swear I almost hung the phone up, like, who's punking me here? And, and I signed a contract the next day, drove down to Tennessee, and I played for the final 2.5 weeks for the rookie ball team in Kingsport, Tennessee. So that was how I got into pro ball with the Mets. It's really just, I was available. I'd played at a high enough level. They knew like I wasn't going to embarrass myself. They needed somebody to plug a hole. And that's how I got my foot in the door. Part of that signing, they're like, yeah, I'll let you come to spring training, give you a chance. Which I think, I don't know how accurate that was. And I'm working as an engineer that off season, and I got a phone call telling me that, yeah, we're releasing you. And I was not happy about that. I called up the scouting sign, like, what the hell, you lied to me, And he made some phone calls. So they ended up letting me come to spring training. You can imagine what they felt about me at that point. I was this squeaky wheel that was in the way now. They sent me straight to extended spring training. So if you know anything about spring training, they starts in early March of the month, and then everybody breaks to their seasons. But they have short season teams. Some of those aren't around anymore, and they don't start until after the draft. So you have this like 2-month like purgatory where they're still doing spring training with the guys that aren't on full season teams. And it's like, nobody wants to be extended spring training. Well, I didn't go through regular spring training. They sent me straight to extended. And then I was there for about 2.5 weeks. I think I checked the box for them. I got my chance and they released me. Yeah, look, I was realistic. I knew I wasn't an elite runner. I could defend. I could hold my own. I still believe I could hold at those levels. I wasn't going to hit enough. In fact, I was hoping to throw me knuckleball and get my chance. So I was trying to just get a bullpen and maybe I can hang on as a knuckleballer. Almost had that mission lined up and they released me. So that was my experience in affiliated ball. And so I had a leave of absence from my engineering job to go pursue that. Just kind of cool. And so I already had the whole summer kind of booked off. I didn't want to go right back to work. So I'm like, well, let me try this independent league thing. So I looked up some tryouts. They had some tryouts going on. I drove up to Jersey and did a tryout for the Can-Am League. Kind of got some interest, but nothing clicked. The next day was a tryout over in Cincinnati. So like in like a 24-hour crew, I drove to Jersey and back to Northern Virginia, then 10 hours to Cincinnati through the night, no sleep, did the tryout that morning. The coach was like, yeah, I don't know if you're for us, but the league tryouts in Chicago. So I drove straight to Chicago. And the next day they had a league tryout up in Chicago. And then they did a little draft, and I was drafted to the Washington Wildcats, which is the team of the Frontier League. And so that's how I got into independent ball, and then went straight to Washington, PA. So it was a fun little trip, and ended up making that roster, and was there for 2 summers, and had arguably the best baseball experience of my life, playing professional baseball, independent ball. But that stadium, they pack it with 4,000 or 5,000 people at the night. They got this amazing mascot. The Wild Thing does this cool dance in the 7th inning. You're playing to win, so there's no like development. So you're just playing against players versus minor leagues. You kind of have guys on your roster clearly there to develop, and you're not playing to win. And so it was like this awesome environment where we're playing to win. We're all guys that was just grind and love the game. It was just an amazing experience.
That's awesome. What were some maybe peak moments that stand out to you that are memorable from that time in the independent league?
Yeah, I mean, I think you remember your first of all those. And I think I remember my first at bat for the Wild Things was like in an exhibition game, and in those moments, like the memory's always like kind of foggy, like, but I just remember being in the box and just kind of being clear-minded and smoking a bowl of the Gap, and had a double in my first at bat. I was pretty sure I don't think I made many doubles, so it's memorable when I do, but that was one that kind of stood out, and my last at bat. So the second summer when I returned, right before the All-Star break, I got a call for Coach O'Connor of Virginia, and the volunteer coaching position had opened up. And I kind of knew I wanted to get into college coaching and, to try it out. And I kind of planted that seed with him that, hey, when this job opens up, Brian Anderson was the coach at that time. He had moved on to Radford and that job opened up. And so I'm like, give me a call. I just get a call. I'm having a great time. I had recovered from a shoulder surgery, so I'm back playing. I rehabbed all off season. I had 3 surgeries to get my arm back. I'm playing, excited, and I get this call. I'm like, all right, well, I got to go now to Virginia or pass this opportunity to keep playing. And so I made the decision. I'm like, look, this door open. It's what I really want to do. I love playing, but in the big picture, I need to move on. And so I went into the coach's office and told him, hey, unfortunately, tomorrow's my last game. They thought I was joking. I'm like, no, absolutely serious. So I got to play one game that I knew was my last game. What was so awesome about it was you think of like, when you watch the big leagues, you see these guys that are retiring, like who's the guy for the Rockies that just stepped down and Charlie Black, right? He knows he's retiring. He gets this like last hurrah swan song in front of his fans. Like that's a really unique thing to get to do as an athlete, is to decide when you leave and to leave on your terms and to leave in that way. And while it was independent ball, not the big leagues, it got like that. And so I started the game. They made an announcement that this is my last game, and I'm the smallest guy on the field, so I'm kind of a fan favorite. So some cheers, all I want to do is hit a home run on my last at bat, Yeah. So I'm in the on deck circle visualizing, and I actually hit a ground rule double in my first at bat of the game. It's the only one in my lifetime I've ever hit. Almost hit it out. So those were one of those moments. And in my last at bat, I hit a nice single up with a shortstop out to end it. So it was kind of neat to go out on that high road, but And then what was really amazing was in the would have been, I guess, the top of the 9th inning. I played second base, and coach called time, and he pulled me off the field mid-inning. So I got to walk off the field to like a standing ovation of the crowd, like, oh my God. Oh, what an amazing experience, that is cool. It was really cool. So those are some of the memorable things I have, some of those experiences, but yeah, pretty cool experience.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I want to get to the coaching transition next, but before that, you said the word visualizing in the batter's box, or actually in the on deck circle. Tell us about that. What practices and tools have you learned and used to create that clear mind that you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I think I took in grad school, I had to do 1 year master's and a 5th year of playing baseball at Virginia. And I remember learning about, sports psychology techniques, visualization and self-talk, and I think in various informal ways that come across those concepts, but this idea that, you can kind of create the experience in your mind and that those experiences, your mind doesn't necessarily know there's a difference, and that if you can create that picture, you can rehearse real world events and then hopefully make them happen, and start to create that confidence. So that's something I think I started doing in college. I remember, I tell our kids, like, look, when we were standing out in the field and the national anthem's playing, that was my time where I'm rehearsing every ball I could get at second base. So I'm visualizing ground ball at me, forehand, backhand, double play, and I'm running through that progression visually, and I'm feeling myself do it in the first person perfectly, you know. And I tell people, like, you make mistakes in your visualization. Now reset and start over. And you try to get through that sequence and do that. In the on deck circle, you can visualize what that pitch will look like coming in. That mindset, what it's going to feel like, first person to swing the bat and try to create that in your mind's eye. And then step in the box and try to create that again, so it's something that I've used, and it certainly can help you kind of get your mind right a little bit. Self-talk is a big one. You get those demons in your head that start sowing doubt, and I tell kids, when I'm talking camp, how important that is. I remember being, playing Miami, at home and playing second base and tying run at third base and bottom of the ninth, and I'm playing second base and like all the thoughts of I could lose this game or hit the ball to me, right? And if you're saying the words, you can't say the negative things. You can't say two things at once. So like the way like almost overriding those circuits with positive talk was a really good tool to eliminate anxiety and just start to and do some confidence. Hit the ball to me. I'll hit the ball. And some of that chatter, even just chatter to your teammates. Just that some kids don't do as much anymore. But hey, pitch your hand out. Hey, throw strike here. This is a chatter you would have. I was that kid that was always talking. Right. But there's a function of that, right? If you're talking and thinking about what to say, you're not thinking about the error you just made, and so I think those are really good tools that can be practiced and have a lot of impact.
Baseball's such a mental game. I mean, obviously, physically, you have to be able to do things on the field, but the amount of space between pitches and situational adjustments. I mean, it's fascinating how much every player has time to think, how much time there is to think on the field, and I think that's like one of the unique aspects of the game. What do you do with that time?
Yeah, and you see at the highest level so much variation in physical ability because that mental piece is so important. The guys that maybe aren't as talented skill-wise or athletic can be better than a superior athlete because mentally they can handle those highs and lows and be their best version more often. And you see these elite players that ride the roller coaster and who they are on any given day. They could be the best player on the planet, or they could be the worst player, depending on where they are in a mental state. And I think, baseball is a great example of that. And, but at the same time, the same thing happens in life, like you do tasks for your job and then you get breaks and then you got another project. Like there's these ups and downs in life and these starts and stops. And I think that analogy of baseball to life, I think really resonates, and the skills you need to handle that. I think there's no other sport that teaches that, than baseball.
It seems like you, given your experience in all of these programs that you played for, uniquely prepared you for coaching. Tell us about your first coaching gig and how it brought you to your current role as head coach at LaSalle.
So I kind of always coach. So my younger brother, who now is a coach in the Phillies organization, so he's a coordinator with them, and he was the manager of High A 2 summers ago in the Blue Claws. He kind of followed a similar path, played at Virginia and stuff, and he was 7.5 years younger. So when I was just learning the game, going to these camps, and I'm 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, he's getting in the game as a 3, 4, 5, 6 year old, and there's enough gap where he was my little pet coachy project. Everything I was learning, I was giving to him. And so, certainly there's always that big brother rivalry, but I was old enough that wasn't head to head rivalry. So I was learning how to coach through him. So I was helping out with his teams. My first actually official coaching, I think in high school, I got to coach like a 13-year-old transition team to the big field. So I was the head coach as like maybe a junior in high school of like a 13-year-old team, which is pretty cool, in the fall. And then, I helped out my brother's high school team his junior year. I was assisted when I was, still at Raytheon's before I went off to play. So those are some where I kind of got into coaching. So I kind of always envisioned the coaching piece, and then obviously I wanted to try. When my experience at Virginia, playing under one coach and then another, I really saw the effects of what one set of coaches can be and what a new coaching staff could be. And Coach Womack, the original coach I played under my first 3 years, was amazing. I mean, a really amazing human. I think the program's resources were not what they are now. And I think he did a great job with what he had. But they built a new stadium, and those resources draw new people. And they were able to attract Brian O'Connor from Notre Dame as a young assistant. And to see from my third year to my fourth year, the same roster, but the outcomes be so different, and see the impact, the different things that we were doing in the fall under this new staff, these, Iron Cavalier Toughman challenges, like these mental toughness things that we did in the fall that just created this tight, cohesive bond with this group that created this toughness that we hit the ground running and won like 42 games the next year. We're ranked in the top 10 after being just like a 500 club the team the year before. Like that gave me the buzz, like, wow, coaching, you can have this impact. Like just insert one new coach in the same group of players to do something different. So I just was like, wow, this is amazing. Learning so much, and I want to do this. And that kind of inspired me to want to try it at the college level and kind of get in. So that's kind of where it started, so I was at Virginia, George Mason for 2, really kind of running the show under Coach Billy Brown, who had just retired recently, but he was there forever. And I got to kind of do everything as the position player coach. I got to coach third, give the signs. I was the main hitting coach. Had some great players. Justin Bohr, who played in the big leagues, was our junior first baseman. We won 40 games and went to a regional that year. So I got to just figure it out. Then I went to Radford for a couple of years, and then St. Joe's, and really was, I think on a pathway to where like my next step was maybe to take a head job somewhere. But I think as you understand with kids, like I also, I've always kind of had this big picture idea, like baseball's important, but school's more important, right? Coaching as a job is important, but I want to have a family and be there for my kids. I want to be the dad that's around. And I was starting to see that the college pathway as a coach, there's different kinds of challenges. You can absolutely be an amazing parent as a college coach, but the involvement I want to be able to have my kids, to be there every night to see them. I knew that was not the kind of reality that college coaching was going to provide, and nor would I want to ask my significant other, my wife, to carry the load that a lot of the wives of college coaches have to carry. And that kind of led me like, oh, there's going to be a next. What is that next? I didn't know what that was. And people were telling me, I should teach. I'm like, well, I don't know. I don't see myself as a teacher, and then, that's when I kind of stumbled into, well, maybe I can teach math or science, which obviously an engineer, I should. And that's where I kind of started to look down that pathway. And LaSalle, it was at St. Joe's at the time, so it's local. I didn't know much about the school. Had just recruited their star player who had won a state championship for them to St. Joe's. He was just graduating. I saw a job posting randomly for a math science teacher. I applied. I called up Joe Parisi, who was the head coach. I hadn't met him. Ironically, in the recruiting process, sometimes you don't interact with a high school coach. Silly me, I probably should have, but this kid's travel coach was reputable, so I knew enough. And when I called Joe, I congratulated him on a state championship, and I said, hey, I'm coaching St. Joe's, but I'm applying for this teaching job. If there's anything you can do to help me get in front of the right people, I'd love to teach here. And he's in that conversation, I asked him, How's the summer going? He's like, well, it's bittersweet. I just stepped down as the coach today. So the day he retired as the baseball coach at LaSalle was the day I cold called him about getting my resume in front of him to teach. Which is really wild, the timing and the chances of that. And so
Amazing timing.
yeah, so I was hired as a teacher, and then they opened up the position for the coach in the fall. And it was actually because I was I never taught before. I was a first year teacher. It hurt me that I was going for the baseball job. Mike O'Toole, the principal, was really set on me being a teacher first, which is how all the teachers here at LaSalle, and didn't want me like coming here for baseball, right? And so it actually had to prove to them that I could teach enough to be able to get the coaching job. And fortunately, it took a chance at me, and I've been here ever since. But that was kind of my transition from college to high school. And what's amazing here is, we're a college prep high school. The kids are really bright. All of our players want to pursue college in some way, and they're all talented, and in many ways more talented than the kids I coach at the next level. They're just younger. So I get to run a college program with high school kids, and that's what we're doing here, and it's been a blast, and couldn't be happier.
I want to go back to one thing. You piqued my curiosity with the Cavalier Toughman Challenge. Tell me about that, and maybe some things you're doing now to instill similar resilient skills and team culture with the LaSalle boys.
Yeah, I can't tell you how formative that experience was as a player at Virginia. So if there's one fundamental thing that changed when we came in the fall, Coach Mack has got a military kind of mindset. He's a football guy. I think he was a football player at IEP. His dad played in the NFL. So he's just you're a tough man, but he's really cerebral, always thinking 3 steps ahead. He's awesome. That's why he's the best at what he does. But they knew that, like, look, if you win, you got to be mentally tough, and it's not about skills. We had a baseline of skills because we were pretty talented, but we didn't win up to that standard. We would lose the one-ball game instead of winning, right? And the difference was that mental piece. And so in the fall, they instituted something they called the Iron Cavalier Challenge, and it was over the several weeks in the fall, we would do different events and score points. So it might be like do wall sits. Whoever sits the longest, gives points. Hangs, maybe like some kind of sprints, or there's all these different kinds. We did Observatory Hill's a big little hill on campus. You run it, it's really steep. Time to go up. It culminated in like this obstacle course where we had to like snake the football stadium, then run across the town to the field and army crawl. And you talk about memories. They had snow. There's 6 inches of snow. The infield's is slush. Your army crawl through like ice and slush. You do all wall jumps. And one of those things, like, was an absolute grind to do, but memories for a lifetime because you accomplished something really hard and you did it together with a group of guys. So it's very similar to the Navy SEAL, like kind of that mindset of like, let's do these impossible tasks together. And when you accomplish it, you can accomplish anything. Wednesday mornings where we run 300s. So that's basically around the perimeter of the football field for time. And I remember the first time we did it, we had to run 4 of them, and we had like a minute target time, and you had like a minute and a half rest or something in between, like plenty of rest. So you did it, and guys are done. Like, guys didn't finish, couldn't get all 4. And we finished that workout, and they said, don't worry, in 6 weeks, you'll have to run 9 of them with 30 seconds rest in between. And you can imagine when guys are dying after 4, there's like no shot, right? That's an impossible task. But lo and behold, every week we did it. They subtracted the time every week, and you added 1 every week total. And by the last time, you had half the roster got through all 9, and that feeling of accomplishment, and that, you learn something about your teammates, right? You learn, who the best players are, but who's the guy that you trust is all in mentally. And that's the guy you want with the ball in the 9th inning, right? And so you learn to trust your teammates in a different way. And that absolutely led directly to the success we had the next year, where we won. We came from behind. We won our ball games. We went on the road and swept teams that were some of the best teams in the country. Like, that team was tough. And so, that was something that I took with me. I instituted that in my first year at George Mason. We did it there. I took it to Rapper. We did it there. Did it at St. Joe's, and we do it here at LaSalle. So on Saturday mornings, one of our assistants, Sean Gray, runs it, and we've been doing that for 8 years, or really since year 1 we put that in. And if you ask our guys, they'll tell you the same thing. Like those are memories that they'll have forever, and they bond those guys and they learn how important that team piece is.
Yeah. It's really cool. Training the mind through the body. Yep. What are some challenges that you and your staff um, work with today's high school student? What is uniquely changing or different than kids 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when we were closer to our college playing years, high school time?
Yeah, I would say our players are as skilled and talented as ever. If not more talented and skilled. They're getting access to great information on how to throw, how to swing a bat. They're training. Maybe some of the better athletes are getting weeded out of baseball early, unfortunately, because of other dynamics. But so the talent level's there. And in college is the same way. I've had these conversations with the college coaches because they're dealing with these challenges as well. The issue, though, that's changed is very little of the actual dynamic that these kids are experiencing is a truly real world competitive dynamic. They may compete by having to do a tryout to make a team, but after they've made the team, there is really no true competition for what an individual game means because there's just a tournament after tournament after tournament, not really keeping standings in a lot of cases. Or within their own roster, there's not true competition because they're being selected to play certain positions and then just are the shortstop on that team. So, when I get kids here at LaSalle, a lot of our better players, they are the shortstop on their travel team. Right. And then they show up here and they're one of 3 shortstops that are really good. Right. And that's what's happening at the college level. So we're a little unique here at LaSalle because we or a microcosm of what's happening at the college level. But when you put kids in an environment now where in practice, it's not just you're going to play. It's, oh, crap, I have to perform in practice in order to earn that playing time. I think that's something that's new for guys. And even before that, like if you're a talented player, well, if they haven't played games that have true meaning, like we were kids, like if you lost your tournament in All-Stars, your baseball summer was over and you pick up a ball and play again, maybe in fall ball, but probably not till next spring. You're probably playing another sport. So like it was meaningful when you lost. As your season ended, right? Now the season kind of never ends. It's kind of another thing. And so kids don't have those real consequences, both to get in the lineup and to play the next game. And if their travel team loses, oh, well, it's just my travel team. It's not my town, right? I think there's some scenarios like, I think, the Little League World Series, certainly teams that advance, like they get connected in a way because they're playing for their town. In this area, like media made the run, right? That mattered. When those kids won or lost, they won for the town of media when they were making their run, right? So, but that's so uncommon. There's not many kids that really get to experience that in the way that they did when we were younger, where you're really talents and to make those elite teams, you competed throughout the spring to earn the right to represent your talent. Now it's a tryout. It's a travel team that also plays in house leagues, right? It's not something that culminates based on your performance in the regular season where you earn an all-star spot. So it's just they're not competing in a real way until they get to high school. Until now, they're wearing that jersey that says LaSalle. And when they lose to their rival, they got to walk the halls and it hurts, right? And they feel that real sense of like responsibility. And so what I've seen in my time is our LaSalle kids are high achieving kids, really talented. And so this expectation they have that they want to achieve is really high. But then the game is going to challenge them because it's the game. And baseball is unique that way. And when you get under pressure and you feel like you could lose something, that loss aversion kicks in. And a lot of our guys have really played below their potential because of that fear of failure and that fear of losing something. And so we have to learn how to compete under pressure. And that's something that, we work really hard, to cultivate in a practice setting and try to talk about it a lot and rehearse mentally, and guys improve and, hopefully they get it by the time they leave here. But oftentimes they don't, and they'll learn it eventually, but they get their first exposure to it in high school now. Whereas I think before kids got exposure before high school and would show up and be able to apply it.
Learning how to lose.
Yeah.
Learning how to learn from loss. Yeah. That's really interesting. Just the kind of evolving dynamics of competitive experience leading up to high school. What are some things that that you maybe beyond the kind of resilience training that you're doing with the team to cultivate those, those peak experiences for your guys, for your team?
Hmm. I mean, I certainly think in a practice setting, we're trying to make things competitive. Like when we do our squads, like we very rarely will just say, all right, we're starting an inning, nobody on, nobody out, go. We're playing 3 innings today. Because what we found is like in that setting, you could play 7 innings and maybe one scenario that requires high level baseball thinking is going to organically appear. But what really tests guys mentally is when you get in a game and suddenly it's first and third, there's one out, is tie run at third, we got a first and third defense running, maybe a pin play's got to be like, you have to be able to really quickly assess and make decisions and evaluate all that stuff in real time. And it's not easy to do, especially when in summer ball all summer, those things aren't being emphasized. So they're learning, they're held accountable for the first time in a real way. So, we start almost every unit squad with that scenario. In fact, we use first and third as like an everyday scenario. When pitchers come in live, hey, it's first and third, one out, here we go. And they don't know whether we're going to call a pick play. They don't know what first and third play we're going to do. The offense could run whatever we want. In fact, sometimes I'll let the kids decide what they want to do and give them some freedom to create, or I won't put a play on and they'll just figure it out and we'll watch them flounder and fail, but we're doing it in a safe place where you can fail in practice. And if I want them to fail, so I think we try to create that environment where it's really stressful and making them process and think. And then we get a chance to see failure, correct it, address it verbally, and then try again. And I think guys get comfortable with that feeling. And then when the game happens, it slows things down, right? They've been pushed harder in practice than the game's going to ask them to. And now we can focus on just playing the game a little bit more and not have to take that other level. So I think that's something we try to do as a response, frankly, to what I was seeing in my early years here, where kids we would practice stuff and then in the game, it just would not translate. Like, well, how can we create something that translates? And so that's something that we do a lot of. And I think it has benefits. It makes practices challenging, requires a lot of preparation and planning. We create a game system where there's different point values so that you can quantify success and failure in a different way. So that kids can compete. Then we put something on the line, like the losing team has to do something or winning team gets something, like, so just in any way possible to make it somewhere meaningful and competitive with it, whatever you're trying to do. And I think that's hopefully going to prepare them to translate that to game.
I love that. That situational emphasis is huge. What are guys doing in the off season? How many of what percentage of your team plays another sport in the fall, winter?
I would say we still have a percentage of kids that do. We got kids play soccer, football, and stuff. Less so now than ever. And it's not because of anything we do here at LaSalle. The kids are specializing earlier. When you get on a 12U travel team, they're telling you, oh, by the way, this travel team is going to work out all winter and play in the fall and the spring. And suddenly, well, you can't do 2 sports at once if you're really playing at a high level. And so unfortunately, you're getting kids weeded out that show up that are only baseball. So I think the majority of our kids, like we had 30 freshmen out yesterday or Tuesday, of the 40 that'll try out. In prior years, it might have been 20 because 10 more guys are playing another sport. So I think that dynamic has changed here. A lot of our guys, I try to wrestle here at LaSalle, like that conflicting dynamic of like the value of they're playing travel ball in the fall and the summer. They're playing LaSalle in the spring. There's a value to playing travel ball for kids that want to pursue college baseball. Like that's where they might get in front of college coaches, and that is important. So, some high schools really want the kids doing their high school stuff all fall and prioritize that. And, I've stayed away from demanding that and more kind of requesting it and, try to work around. And I think we have enough numbers that even if we lose some kids travel stuff enough to make a functional practice, which other high schools may not be able to do. So it still kind of works, but trying to find that balance. So where in the fall we can learn, we can teach, there's less at stake. We play some ball scrimmages against local high schools and stuff. So we get a chance to compete a little bit, but it's a little more, less structured, more kind of open field dynamics that we try to do. And we'll do that, really anytime they're in session, starting in late August. And we've been going 3-4 days a week, kind of all the way since late August with the optional workouts. And that'll go all the way until probably Thanksgiving. And then we'll take a little break and then we'll start up again in mid-January and go down the turf field and we'll go all the way up until tryouts with these optional workouts. And, I think there's a lot of kids, if their only thing is baseball, it's what they do. We want to make sure we provide them with those opportunities. And so that kind of works. And then these kids are also going to their workouts with their travel team. They're in a lifting and strength and conditioning program somewhere, which they need to be doing. We have a weight room here. It's trying to manage that time, to get those things, those boxes checked. Oh, by the way, you got homework and schoolwork to do. It just becomes a lot. But it's become that kind of full-time thing for a lot of these kids, which frankly is what happens in college. So they're starting to see what that looks like, and they're starting to decide whether baseball is the thing they really do want to pursue at the next level because they love it, or do they just like baseball and are good? And maybe at college, they can also still like baseball, but play it in club instead of playing it as a job as a true athlete on a roster from school, where it's not just a fun activity. It's part of your responsibility. You got to really love it. I think that's something our guys wrestle with. And I've seen more and more kids pursue the big school club ball experience than go to the Division II or III school they can play at and be on a roster. And I don't think they have it. I think they might have something figured out there. I don't think there's, Justin Machida graduated on 21 group. We won a state championship, wins as our left fielder. He went to Penn State, and he's won 2 national championships for their club team. I would argue he's having an amazing college experience, right? Going to the school he really wanted to be at, and he's playing baseball and loves it with guys that just are doing because they love it on a club team. And they're playing a schedule against other colleges, and there's an actual real league, right? And they're playing for something meaningful for their school. So I think that's got to compete with any level of baseball at any level, right? So I think that's what we're balancing.
Balance, that you said it.
Yeah.
How to lead a healthy, balanced life. What do you do personally to help you do that?
Well, I think I really love what I do. So I don't have to give up something when I show up to work. Like, I look forward to working. I really like being in the classroom. Like it kind of drives me. I think, if somebody handed me $1 million right now and said I could retire, I don't know what I would do. Maybe I'd try golfing, but I think I'd still want to teach. I'd still want to coach. So I think that helps. Certainly there are demands with 3 kids and juggling all the schedule and stuff, but I feel like I don't have to give up something mentally when I wear these different hats. They all are their own hat, and I enjoy them in their own ways. But I think there's a natural flow to the year as a teacher where you get these breaks. I get a season and an off season and then summer, and I'm running camps. And so there's never this monotony of a full calendar year where I'm doing the same thing. And I think that's where people get caught in ruts, right? Where it's like, I look ahead 3 months and I know that's going to look just like that. And it's not changing. And I think being a coach always creates that cycle where you get refreshed. The season ends, you can reset, right? And you might need that reset, and then you get some time. Now you're hungry again. You want to go, and I think that's something that my current dynamic has that naturally built in, which I think gives me that balance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anything else you're doing to just stay motivated, excited? I mean, I think you're naturally there.
Hold on, my lights in there. It goes.
Lights are going off.
There we go. Sorry.
Sorry.
I mean, I still play. I play in the Sunday Men's League.
Nice.
I have a blast doing that. Our team won the championship again this year, which is pretty cool. I get to pitch, and so that kind of keeps me, gives me a different perspective. Sometimes as a coach, you forget how hard the game is. And so I think when you're still playing, you can appreciate. I was teaching these guys this base running stuff, this how to steal what we're trying to do, and then I go try to do it and realize, oh yeah, I just messed up. Right? It's not as easy as telling them what to do. So I think I do that. It keeps you balanced in the way, like keeps that perspective going, kind of keeps that energy going. Gives me something passionate to try to convey to them as I'm learning, right? When you're playing, you're also learning. I'm like, oh, this thing that I'm telling these kids, let me try it. Well, that worked. Or here's another way I can take it. So I think it just gives you another way to look at the game. So I enjoy doing those things. And I'm loving watching my kids get involved in sports. We're doing soccer right now. My 2 boys, we're getting into that, and they're passionate about it. So it's like, what's that challenge as a dad to where I can motivate them and push them without me being the one driving. I want them to be asking you to go play, and I don't want to be coach dad. And certainly as a baseball coach, I think I can provide them with a lot of really good tools and resources and direct them in the right way. But I'm like trying to really purposefully coach the game, but let them drive it. And I think I'm trying to figure that out, because we certainly have, it's certainly a meme, right? Of these dads that are, coaching through their kids. We see that a lot. And I think you want my kids to ride their own path and be passionate about it. They both love baseball. I'm sure there's a piece of it that I'm into it, so they're into it too, but I don't want them to love it because I love it, and so navigating that as a parent, I think is something I'm very conscious of, and trying to make sure that, again, the diverse opportunities, like we purposely didn't sign our boys up for fall baseball. And we're playing soccer and you're having a blast and it's awesome. They're going to do basketball, but I think we're going to try to do that as much as we can. And then the challenge is, all right, at some point, one of them might be interested at a higher level. Well, does that lead to some travelable environment? Like, I don't want to be out there 6 days a week as a 9-year-old, 10-year-old. Like, I think a lot of our kids at high school now, LaSalle in particular, they get to their summer and it's like more baseball, right? How many birthday parties have they passed on that they don't go to because of all these teams they've been committed to? And as parents, we want to teach commitment, right? So, well, your team's playing, so you got to commit to it. So it's going to lead these kids to not want to commit to anything, right? And so, that's a challenge, right? And I think you're going to see some boomeranging back with this population as they pursue their thing. So, that's all what we're dealing with right now, as I'm sure you are as a parent too.
These are great thoughts. Yeah, I was kind of thinking like that, like how do you manage burnout? But you spoke to it, very, I think with a lot of like wisdom there, like, these things kind of move in waves, right?
Yeah.
These trends.
And I think I think we just got to listen, let the kids drive it. And, they got to be the ones wanting to do this stuff.
Yeah. So did I see it right that you were switch hitting?
Yeah. So
Tell me.
right after Little League. So when I was 12, I just
How do you
went
figure out how to do that?
I mean, I knew people did it, and I think I never, so I just on a tee started practicing, and I knew what I was trying to do. It got to the point where I could swing enough off a tee and front toss or whatever BP where I felt confident that I could make contact. And that the fall after my 12-year Little League year, I was playing on 2 teams. One team was on the big field, transitioning to the big field, and one team was a Little League fall where I could still play as a graduated 12-year-old. And so I played as a left-handed hitter in the Little League field and a right-handed hitter on the other field. And I kind of just kept working at it. Was never full-time switching it really until my junior year of high school is when I really committed to being a switch hitter. And then did that all the way on. And funny story though, my 3rd year in college, the 3rd year, yeah, I think my 3rd year in college, I got hurt at one point and couldn't swing right-handed. And so I ended up just finishing the year left-handed, and realized, what, this whole lefty righty advantage, I'm actually okay hitting left on the left. And so I just went lefty all the time. And so the new coaching staff came in and I was only a left-handed hitter in their mountain. They didn't even know I switch hit. Until about halfway through the year, I'm not hitting very well. And I always would, and I was just in the cage because I just switch around, hitting off the tee right-handed. Just tinkering around. Sometimes you can feel different things when you hit from the other side, maybe trigger something for the left side. So I was sitting right-handed and Coach Mack came in and he's like, "What's this?" I'm like, "Well, I used to switch in." He's like, "Really?" When? I'm like, "Well, last year." He got hurt. He's like, "Well, you switch it now." And so literally the next day we go and we're playing William and Mary on the road and they threw a left-hander that played in the big leagues. And so I'm batting right-handed. About over here. And so that was my reintroduction to hitting right-handed in college. I got sawed off, could barely hold a bat. Got my only double that year down in Miami. That next weekend. Bunty right-handed. I hadn't bunted in a year and a half. And the field was so fast, I bunted it right at shortstop, and it blew past all the fielders, and I got a double out because nobody covered the bag. That was my only extra base hit that year. It was a bunt double. So, but yeah, and another funny aside of that is, so in my middle league, we play one team, and I don't have time to go like practice hitting very much, especially little kids. So it's like I was finding this challenge of like I'm not hitting enough, but now I've got to hit both ways. And I play on Sunday for like 5 at bats, and they throw one lefty and then a righty, and I'm jumping back and forth and not doing anything up to the standard I want them. Getting frustrated. So I just decided a couple of years ago, I'm just going to hit left-handed. I've just always hit lefties. So I've been doing that for the last couple of years, only hitting left-handed, and and being fine. And, I feel like I hit better if I can focus on one. I just decided to choose left-handed. And so this summer, I got hurt. I tweaked something, swinging. It's the week before the championship series. And I go into that week, like, oh, crap, well, I can throw. That's good. I can still pitch. But I can't hit left-handed. So I'm like, I guess I'll hit right. So I practiced a couple days during the week, told my coach, hey, bat me at the bottom. I haven't taken live at bat in like 5 years. And flipped around and hit right-handed and had the best offensive day I've had. Wow. So next year I'll hit right-handed, So
I think you're being really humble about this, but that ability seems like a high level of mastery for such a defined skill, or as hitting. I mean, that's understanding the mechanics of rotation each way. I think that this is a lot more challenging than
you see it less and less now because it's just really demanding on time. Like you're really 2 different hitters. Like that's conceptually, I know what I'm trying to do, but my swing may look the same to people on both sides, but they feel very different. And so you're tinkering and trying to figure out what version you are here versus the other. You're taking twice as many reps because you're 2 hitters, and then for that hopeful advantage of some matchup that's going to be advantageous. And I think you're seeing that less and less because of some of the analytics suggest, like some guys aren't, that matchup isn't done. For me personally, the hardest pitch to hit is the changeup, which when I flip around and go right on left, that's the pitch to try to get me out with. Lefties aren't throwing me changeups when I'm batting lefty. If they're throwing sliders, well, I see sliders just fine. I can see the spin. So the advantage I was gaining, some of it's angle, some of it's a little reaction time, but a lot of it is just pitch recognition, what pitches you'll see. I actually wasn't seeing that advantage. And in fact, my little brother, when I was right around that time, right at the beginning of college, he was in Little League and he was switch hitting in Little League because he would do it from the beginning because I was doing it. And around 12, I was kind of coming to that realization, like, I don't know if I'm getting an advantage by still hitting right and left. So I'm just going to hit left. And hey, Keith, you should probably just stay left-handed because you're going to get the advantage by being closer. You're not a power hitter. Like, you see the ball fine. So he only hit left-handed. Now, he switched through. He actually threw with both hands, which is a different kind of skill. Wow. Which is kind of cool.
It's cool.
But yeah, so he only hit left-handed because I realized it wasn't the advantage that I thought it was. I think you're seeing less and less switch hitters at higher levels for that reason, because you better be really elite from both sides to make it, and yeah.
That is really neat. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing this. And, this has been a great conversation. I really want to thank you. I really respect this guy, Coach Kyle Werman from LaSalle College High School. Thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me. Oh, bless. Look forward to seeing you at the pool next summer. See you around. I'll see you.
Looking forward to it. Awesome. All right. Thanks again. I hope this show helps us all access our highest potential. You can learn more about my work as a yoga therapist at flowstateyogatherapy.com or on social media at flowstateyogatherapy. You can also email me at flowstateyogatherapy@gmail.com. I look forward to connecting with you all. I hope you find an interesting nugget in this episode. I hope you share this with a friend, and I hope you reach out to me with feedback. It is valuable. Thank you again, and enjoy the journey.